How y'all doing? Mike Cameron here. First of all, I want to thank you. I mean, the support has been tremendous, and I'm trying to do this daily thing, and I feel really good about it. I woke up this morning feeling good and feeling more confident on putting out this content, uploading these videos. So that's good. And I'm all shaved up. Not too much. Don't look too young out here. People stop taking me serious. But got my shades on, got my hater blockers, my Ray-Bans. And like I said, I'm feeling good this morning, and I'm on the way to teach real estate class. I finally got my seatbelt on. See, I think it's smart. And I freed up a lot of space on my phone. Finally, got a lot of space on my phone now. I deleted over 2,000 photos and videos on my phone. I saw pictures and videos from like last year, like middle of last year. So, pretty much around the same time. Man, I really got to start deleting stuff. But I got this little storage device in my house, and I sent all my pictures to the device via Wi-Fi connection, external hard drive. So that was nice. Anyhow, but this morning I felt compelled to bring some knowledge to the table and kind of explain how the foreclosure process works here in Florida, and how I look for investment properties and how I do research on investment properties. So if you ever had a plan of getting started in the flipping house movement, and you kind of don't know where to start. Now, a lot of my students, I'm about to go to class right now, and my students, they already know, because I don't hide anything from my students. It's pretty much an unfiltered class. So I go off the beaten path a little bit, and I kind of rant a little bit about what I'm doing, and anything that I think is valuable to my students. And by the way, if you ever want to register for an upcoming real estate class, you can visit our website 24/7. The website is www.thecameronacademy.com, and you can take online classes, but you won't get me, and I won't be in front of you, and I won't be telling you all of these little tidbits and goodies, as I call them. I like to give my students a lot of goodies and little freebies here and there. But to get back on track about investing in property and foreclosure. Now, just so you know, here in Florida, we are considered to be a lien theory state. So what does that mean? Well, you got lien theory, you got title theory. And I've heard somewhere Florida is both lien and title theory, but that really depends on the financing. But for the most part, we are lien theory state. So in exchange for getting a loan and from a lending institution, we use our house, our property, most likely our house, it could be a condo, it could be something else, but our property as collateral for the debt. They call it security for the debt, and the action of doing this is called hypothecation. Okay, all good terms that you should be familiar with. So we hypothecate, which means, and we also sign something called a promissory note, which is, it represents an evidence of a debt. It's the promise to repay the debt to the lender. And both things accompany one another when we obtain financing to purchase property. So to bring it all together, we have this promise to repay, and then the documents or legal instruments that represent the hypothecation of our property, the pledging of collateral. It's a secured loan, home financing. But anyhow, so somebody gets financing from a bank. They record the mortgage in the public records, and the mortgage serves as lien against the property. So I'm going to repeat that. The mortgage serves as lien against the property. A lien is a claim, usually out of some type of dollar amount. Okay, so it's a claim against the property. So what is a claim? Well, the claim is that we have this debt that you promised to repay, and there's evidence that you promised to repay it. That's the promissory note, and it tells you everything you need to know about the debt, how much, how often, and so forth. And then you have, obviously, the mortgage that says if you stop paying, then we're going to take the property. It's going to be used as collateral. So imagine you stop paying. Now, let's be clear here. When does the foreclosure process start? When is it initiated? It's usually after 90 days of non-payment. Now, there is something in place to further protect the borrower. I'm going to turn on the AC because my hands are freezing right now holding this phone. Okay. So, where was I here? Okay, so there are some additional protections in place for the borrower, and something you might be familiar with is called the equity of redemption, where you're allowed to redeem yourself. Equity of redemption, keyword redemption, redeeming, and allows the borrower to stop the foreclosure action against the property. So that's nice, right? All the way up until the foreclosure date. Some people file bankruptcy, and that stops foreclosure. And there's all kinds of ways to prolong. And especially with all the craziness that happened in 2008, banks weren't verifying correctly. They were just selling mortgages again and again, and they were just dirt. And somebody finally ends up with the paper, and they're unable to foreclose. And that person basically, they try, and the person's not paying, and they basically walk away with the property for, free and clear. But that's a rare circumstance. I don't want to say rare. It's probably happened thousands of times with all this craziness. But it's probably not the majority, is what I'm saying. So, back on track here. So after 90 days of non-payment, they file the foreclosure. Let's kind of speed up the process, and let's talk about it going to court. Because here in Florida, foreclosure is a judicial process, right? So foreclosure, once it's been solidified, once the foreclosure process is being completed, a judgment is issued against the plaintiff. So they're basically in favor of the note holder, the lien holder, which is the bank. Excuse me. And there are a couple options for the bank. Either the bank, when they foreclose, and remember, it has to go through court for this to be solidified, they either take possession of the property, reclaim possession of the property, or they send it to auction through the county. So this is where I buy some of my properties. When it goes to foreclosure auction held through the county, there is a specific date set for it, and me as a bidder, I register for these bids, and you only have to register once, at least as far as I know, for Orange, Osceola, and a few other counties. You receive a bidder number, and that is your bidder number, and that's it, and that stays with you forever. So, I see what's coming up in the auction. I have access to a database, and by the way, if you're interested in registering for foreclosure auctions in Orange County and Lake County and Polk County and Duval County. Most of this stuff is online, okay? There are very few auctions that are held live. Very few. Which eliminates a lot of competition. So if you're willing to drive out and participate in these auctions, then you might get a better deal, right? Because the same investors usually show up every single time, and people run out of money, right? So you might get lucky, and probably a little bit more lucky than going to this online auction where you might be fighting or bidding against a person all the way in Dubai. But I've won in both live auction and online auction. So, and I felt like I got an amazing deal, and the sale of those properties reflect it. But anyhow, so I find the properties that I like. My research, I like to do my research kind of at the last minute, up until the foreclosure auction date. And the reason why I say that is because properties get redeemed. Foreclosure, ends up not going through the foreclosure auction. The auction is stopped for whatever reason. So, I waste my time doing research if I see a property and, it doesn't end up going through. So, just to kind of recap everything, we know, once again, Florida, lien theory state. Mortgage is recorded in the public records. It serves as lien, but if you stop paying, usually after non-payment of 90 days, they file a lawsuit against the mortgage lien to your property. So they're basically enforcing their claim. And what's the claim? Well, the claim is that they're going to take the property if you stop paying, and you stop paying. Here's evidence that they broke their promise, and here's evidence that they hypothecated the property. So once I find property that I really like, and I've done condos, by the way, and I've done townhouses and single family homes, and I'm going to tell you, obviously, there's money to be made in any one of those properties. But be prepared. If you buy condo, specifically condo, maybe townhouse, in public auction, county auction, just be prepared, okay? You got to do your research, because you might stumble into a property, you got an amazing deal on a condo, and then you find out that they haven't been paying their condo fees for 7-8 years, and there's over 50. This has happened before, okay? This has happened to me. Luckily, your boy is a good negotiator, and I think I pride myself on negotiating, but I kind of knew that going into it, and I did research beforehand. Have I made mistakes? Of course I've made mistakes. And sometimes the condo association, they don't want to play ball. They said, hey, listen, congratulations, you bought the property at auction, pay up. And that 50 grand that I use as an example, that's not the condo fees. We're talking about maybe 20 grand of that as a condo fees. Maybe 15 grand of that as a condo fees. They slapped $35,000 on top of that in attorney fees. This is the truth. And it's BS. And we know it is. But anyhow, that's besides the point. So, back on track here. There are four resources. Four resources you want to take advantage of. Now, first of all, I want to apologize because I kind of... I maybe provide a little bit too much information, and maybe you're thinking, just get down to the damn point. So I'm going to do that right now. Here's how you do research on these properties. 4 organizations, departments, what have you, that you want to basically tap into in order to review a property. Number 1 is obviously you want to go to the auction website, and they got some information there. They got parcel ID, they got a case number, they got the plaintiff's names, they got the defendant's names, they got a lot of good information, okay? And even the case number will kind of reveal some information to you, like when the foreclosure was initiated. But the first organization, or department rather, is the property appraisers department. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you, if this isn't online for you in your county, because I don't know where you're tuning in from, then you actually have to go and visit that department. Now, good news is, if it's not online, usually they keep the departments pretty close to one another. But county property appraisers website is what I visit first, and I get some really good information. Find out a little bit more about these people that are going into foreclosure, who is on the deed, and when they purchased the property, how much they paid for the property, and you can kind of see some conditions in the neighborhood. Sometimes they include an external photo, but might be old photos. Google Maps. I use Google Maps. So actually, I'm going to throw in probably a fifth. Actually, the first thing I go to is I just copy and paste the address into a web browser and see, if Google Maps shows me like their front door, so I can kind of, and those are up to date. Those are pretty damn up to date. So you see condition of the property, you see surrounding properties, neighborhood. So that's nice. Okay, so Google Maps is what I use. I also use the county appraiser's website, and then I also check the tax collector's website. So if it was Orange County, let's say, then it would be Orange County Tax Collector. If it was Osceola County, it would be Osceola County Tax Collector. Orange County Property Appraiser, Osceola County County Property Appraiser, and so forth. And so I mentioned, obviously, I use Google Maps. Just to recap, I use the county appraiser website. That's three so far. I use the auction website, my bidder's account, to reveal some information. I use a tax collector's website, and I also use comptroller's website. So this is where you find, or you could use a clerk of court's website. Clerk of courts, you can see when legal documents have been filed. But for the most part, I found more success with the comptroller's website. Now, some counties, they use only the clerk of court's website to handle both departments. So it kind of varies from county to county, partisan stuff. So anyhow, I go to the comptroller's website, and you got to do your searches the right way. Usually it's last name first, then first name. And I like to search this under either party, grantor, grantee, because I like to see all the history. I like to see when they conveyed, when they received. You can basically see somebody's whole life story online. You can see when they got married. You can see when they got divorced. You can see death certificates. It's endless, the type of stuff you see about a person online. And if your Facebook is open to the public, then I can definitely see what's going on with that person. And actually, believe it or not, and I don't think this is a violation of privacy, I've contacted people that I find their Facebook, and I try to get a whole story. I'm basically an investigator, right? And I feel like Sherlock Holmes with these flipping properties, and I really do a lot of research before I move forward. And once I find this property and I think it's a good fit, and you're probably wondering, okay, what about numbers? Well, it depends on your budget, but if we're talking about a judgment that's like 30 grand, right? Then you got to be careful. Look at who the plaintiff is. Most likely at that dollar amount, it's the condo association, and yes, or homeowners association. And yes, those two associations, they can force the sale of a property if you're not paying it. So that's a little bit crazy, but and some people bid on these and they don't know what they're doing and they make mistakes. So I'm just kind of giving you a heads up on that. Now, obviously low judgments are good because you never know what you're walking into. But once I find a property I like, and I mean, if the judgment is too high, the reason why I even mention that is because the bank is probably not going to let the property go for anything. I mean, not 1/3 of the judgment. So if the judgment is low, then that contributes towards your success on bidding on that particular property. But have I seen high judgments where the bank just lets it go? Of course. And whatever it sells for, it sells, okay? And you might stumble upon that, and it's all about opportunity. You got to take advantage of the opportunity when it presents itself. So don't discriminate on properties. Be open, and once you find it, then you're gonna have to put a deposit into the and I like to, obviously, the more properties the merrier. I don't like to go after just one particular property. I like to have like at least 3, 4, 5 different properties just as a backup plan, so I'm not wasting my time putting all my eggs in one basket. But you never know, if the auction only has one good property, then that's the one you go after. But just keep in mind that you're not the only person that's looking at it. There's probably like a million other people that are looking at it too. So you have to, after you register, and you find these properties you like, and you could do this beforehand, but I recommend, like once you have a good idea what you want to go after, you have to put at least 5%. 5% of your number, basically the winning bid number. Now I do my math backwards, okay? I basically, since I'm a realtor on top of everything else, I have access that the public doesn't have access to. They call it a type of MLS, but the one that I use specifically is through my Florida Regional MLS, and it's called the Matrix. So I do price per square foot analysis. I find out what similar properties in the surrounding area have sold for, and I do my research that way. Once I got that number, that value of what it's gonna sell for once it's fixed up, then I can work backwards and figure out, okay, if this is what it's going to sell for, and I want to make 20% profit, I kind of got ahead of myself. That 20% profit I like to make on the flip itself, worst case scenario. So I actually take that 20% off the top of the bid number, really. But let me just get through it. So I imagine, just so you have some numbers, $100,000, actually let's say $125,000 is what the property is worth. I think it's going to cost maybe like 25 grand in renovations, so I take 25 off of that. So now we got 100 grand, and I'm just basically working to a bidding number. And then if I do research and I find out that there's association dues and stuff like that I might have to satisfy, then that would affect my price. But let's just stick with $100,000, clean numbers. And then I factor in closing costs. I factor in it might be like $100,000 might be like 10 grand closing costs or something like that, minus commissions. And then I'm left with a number. Maybe it's 80 grand, right? So I would take my 20% off that number. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I like to do my math that way. Rather, I'm basically hedging against risk. So I like to have like the bare bones number, and basically I want to get the property for the cheapest price possible. I am all about the deal. Let's make a deal, that sort of thing. I'm all about the deal. So if I'm not getting a deal, I walk away. I don't get caught up with emotion and enthusiasm and all that stuff at the auction and have a bidding war. I don't do it. I'll let you have the property if it doesn't hit my number. But since I'm so conservative with my numbers, I can play, and I figure, okay, give or take 5 grand, right? So I'm thinking, okay, 5 grand, I can go up a little bit more, but then once I hit that maximum, I'm like, okay, I'm done. Good luck with the property. Hopefully it's profitable, but I want to make 20% at least on my investments. So anyhow, there's all kinds of sales that you can participate in. Foreclosure is just one of them. I got some more tricks up my sleeve. I participate in tax deed sales. I do tax lien certificates. I've done live auctions. I've gone to every website. I bought properties through auction websites such as, auction.com is garbage, but HomePath, Home Search, which I think is Zome now, or Home, whatever you want to call it. HUD Step, Home Store. I mean, there's so many different websites. Just search it online, and I guarantee you'll find at least 6 of them with some good properties available. But remember, if you do your auctions online, there's millions of eyes on it. Okay, and that's a lot of competition. I like to go somewhere where there's a lot less competition. Obviously, the investment is made when you purchase. It's not when you sell, right? So it's got to be the right deal. And if you got a lot of competition, then you're probably not going to get the best deal. And you got to be the first person to catch the deal. Being ready, cash, liquid, and being the first person in front of somebody to say, hey, let's go ahead and make a deal. And don't be afraid to make the offer, okay? Because you might say, hey, listen, I'm interested in buying your property, but you never throw out a number. You don't give something for somebody to consider. And then they walk away and say, hey, that was a nice guy. Maybe that's an option. Let's look into our options. No, that deal is for me, okay? So this is what I'll pay you for the property. Think about it. This is what I'm going to pay. I'll pay you $100,000 cash for that property. Think about it. Let me know if something changes. Okay? Here's my number. Go ahead and call me. Let me know if something changes. Okay? And I'll take it off your hands. You don't got to worry about anything from that point on. Okay? And, you just got to be direct with people, and you can't BS. People can read BS. And, anyhow, that's my 2-piece, my 2 cents. And hopefully you learned something off of this, and hopefully I brought some more value. I know I probably should have more structure to this, but once again, if you want to learn more and you're really interested in having more access than the general public as to find out what property value is worth, and all the tools that we have as realtors that make our lives 10 times easier as investors, then you might want to think about registering for our upcoming real estate class. Okay, you can register online, www.thecameronacademy.com, or you can call the school to speak with a live person for some options, 407-251-0051. And we're here to help. Okay, we're here to help you out. And in addition to the knowledge that's irreplaceable throughout the 2-week session in which we offer pre-licensed class, you're getting credit for it. It's an investment you're making on yourself. It's only 2 weeks. You get a certificate that you can frame, put up on the wall, portfolio, whatever the case, and that certificate allows you to take your state exam to get the license. And of course, if you take class with us, we're going to give you more than what the textbook offers, and some insight on our expertise, which is obviously investing, and everybody wants to know about investing. So give us a shout. I'm going to sign off and get started on this class. They're probably waiting for me right now, and hopefully I'll have some more content in the near future. Take care. God bless. Bye.